Good morning, everybody. Welcome to FBC at South Oak, and welcome home. When you walked in, you should have received a bulletin this morning. And if you didn't, go ahead and raise your hand, and we'll get someone in a green shirt to get you one. Anybody need one? Okay. So on the back of here, there's what we call a Connect card. It's a little flap, and you can just rip it out for me. And if you're a first-time guest, all you need to do is just put your name and if you have any prayer requests, and that can be your offering for today. And anybody can just put a prayer request on there. You can put whatever information you're comfortable with. If you want to put your name or you don't, that's totally fine. Our pastoral staff prays over these every week, so that's an important way for us to connect with you guys and just to know what's going on in the body, where we can help you and serve you. If you just put that in the bucket at the end, then we'll appreciate that. Other than that, we have a quarterly conference meeting at the end of this service, so hope to see you there.
Well, good morning. Let's stand up and worship together.
Walking the wayside, lost on a lonely road. I was chasing the highlight, trying to satisfy my soul. All the lies I believed in left me crying like the rain. Then I saw lightning from heaven, and I've never been the same. I'm gonna climb a mountain, I'm gonna shout about it. I am a child of love. I found a world of freedom, I found a friend in Jesus. I am a child of love. The sting of the fire, but I saw you in the flames. Just when I thought it was over, you broke me out of the grave. I'm gonna climb a mountain, I'm gonna shout about it. I am a child of love. Freedom, I found a friend in Jesus. I am a child of love. Hey, yeah. Oh, I am a child of love. Hey, yeah. Oh, I am a child of love.
Nothing can change the way you love me. Nothing can change the way I belong to you. Yes, I do. Nothing can separate. Nothing can change the way you love me. Nothing can change the way I belong to you. Yes, I do. Nothing can separate. I'm gonna climb a mountain. I am a child of love. Yeah. I'm bound to world of freedom. Yes, I am a child of love. I'm gonna climb a mountain, I'm gonna shout about it. I am a child of love. I found a world of freedom,
could just sit, I could just sit and wait for all your goodness, hope to feel your presence. And I could just stay, I could just stay right where I am and hope to feel you, hope to feel something again. And I could hold on, I could hold on to who I am and never let you change me from the inside. And I could be safe, oh, I could be safe here in your arms and never leave home, never let these walls down. But you have called me higher, you have called me deeper, and I'll go where you will lead me, Lord. You have called me higher, you have called me deeper, and I'll go where you will lead me, Lord, where you lead me, where you lead me, Lord. And I can hold on, I can hold on to who I am and never let you change me from the inside. And I could be safe, oh, I could be safe here in your arms and never leave home, never let these walls down. But you have called me higher, you have called me deeper, and I'll go where you will lead me, Lord. You have called me higher, you have called me deeper, and I'll go where you will lead me, Lord, where you lead me, where you lead me, Lord. And I will be yours, oh, I will be yours for all my life. I will be yours, oh, I will be yours for all my life. Oh, I will be yours, oh, I will be yours for all my life. So let your mercy, I will be yours, Lord, I will be yours for all my life. So let your mercy light the path before me. 'Cause you have called me higher, you have called me deeper, and I'll go where you will lead me, Lord. You have called me higher, you have called me deeper, and I'll go where you will lead me, Lord. 'Cause you have called me higher, you have called me deeper, and I'll go where you will lead me, Lord. 'Cause you have called me higher, you have called me deeper, and I'll go where you will lead me, Lord, where you lead me, where you lead me, Lord, where you lead me, where you lead me, Lord. Jesus. Praise you, Father. Before I spoke a word, You were singing over me. You have been so, so good to me. Before I took a breath, you breathed your life in me. You have been so, so kind to me. Sing it out. And all the reckless love of God, oh, it chases and I couldn't earn it, and I don't deserve it. Yes. Give yourself away. Overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Yeah, yeah. When I was your foe, still your love fought for me. You have been so, so good to me. When I felt no worth, you paid it all for me. Yeah. You have been so, so kind to me. And all the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God, oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. And I couldn't earn it, and I don't deserve it. Still you gave yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Yeah.
There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. Yeah. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. Yeah. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, or lie you won't tear down, coming after me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, lights till I'm found, leaves the 99. And I couldn't earn it, and I don't deserve it. Still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. No, Yes.
Now, I know the world does not understand why we call it reckless. They're not going to get that our God left perfection, glory, kingdom, kingship. He left it all behind to become like us, to feel pain, to get beat, to be put on a cross, to have his Father turn his back on him, all because of us. That's crazy. That's reckless. And there's no one who has shown us that kind of love but our Father. That's reckless love. And when you get to know God, you understand why we call it reckless. Because we don't deserve it. So this next song, how many of you listen to the Joy FM? Maybe you turn that on? All right, fabulous. Well, this is a song that has just been coming out this past week. I think I've heard it being played. But 2 weeks before that, we had a beautiful couple that's in our family, Amanda and Seth Anthony. They came and talked to me one day after service, and they were talking about worship, and she said, there's a song I want you to hear. I said, okay. Because I usually, people send me stuff, and I'll listen to them. She's like, but I want you to listen to it right now. I said, okay. And she said, well, before I want you to hear this song, I want you to understand, I was going through a really tough time. And she didn't tell me what that time is, but it's okay. You just say tough time, we all get it, right? Put your label on your tough time. We can all do it. And she says, in the midst of that, I had a friend send me this song, and it just come out. It was like the day it just came out. And she said, that has become our anthem in our house. We play it all day long, and we're singing it. And their little daughter, Michaela, is shouting it out at the top of her lungs, this song. And I said, well, let me hear it. And within 2 lines, I was like, yes, absolutely. Sold, 100%. And then I see who is singing it, and it's somebody that I grew up with as a little girl. And I'm like, woo. She sang with her brother, and they were Cece and Beamy Winans. Anybody remember them? Man, they put out good music. Well, she's in her 60s, and she felt God calling her to write right now at this time. And this is the first song she put out, and you will see it is perfect for the time that we are in. Because we have a God that we can call on. And we have a God that we can stand as. We believe that you do miracles. And we're going to stand, and we're going to together say, we believe for it. God, you can bring it. So enjoy this song. It's called Believe For It by Cece Winans.
They say this mountain can't be moved. They say these chains will never break. But they don't know you like we do. There is power in your name. We've heard that there is no way through. We heard that tide will never change. They haven't seen what you can do. There is power in your name. So much power in your name. Move the immovable, break the unbreakable. God, we believe. God, we believe for see a miracle. God, we believe. God, we believe for it. You are the way where there seems to be no way. We trust in you, God, you have the final say. You are the way where there seems to be no way. We trust in you, God, you have the final say. You have the final say. Move the immovable, break the unbreakable. God, we believe. God, we believe for it. For the impossible, we'll see a miracle. God, we believe. God, we believe for it. God, we believe. God, we believe for it.
Amen. You may be seated.
Good morning. That's our invitation this morning, is to believe for it. Not empty, not just empty belief, not just, well, man, I hope so, but like believe for it. And I want to encourage you this morning. I was wrecked in the first worship, and I felt it starting to happen again as we started talking through, as we were singing through, believe for it. I want to encourage you, whatever you are hoping for right now, whatever you are holding on to Jesus for, believe for it. In prayer, in earnest prayer for it, because he is faithful. He is not going to let us go. My name is Keith. I'm one of the pastors here. If you're brand new to us, I want to welcome you. I want to thank you for being here this morning. It's not lost on me that you could be anywhere this morning. You could be on the lake, or you could be fishing, but you're like, no, I'd be in church somewhere. Well, I'm glad you landed here. If you're on our live stream, thank you for showing up on live stream with us. We are talking about fruits of the Spirit. So we're calling it this summer, the summer fruits. And this morning, I want to just kind of share why we're here. Why are we landing in the fruits of the Spirit? In verses 22 and 23 of Galatians, Paul says this: but the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Against such things there is no law. And those who belong to Christ Jesus have crucified the flesh with its passions and desires. Now, what I didn't read to you right before that was the works of the flesh, or the fruit of the flesh. And so there's this reality that you and I, as followers of Jesus, that we have a mission to be disciples that make disciples. And we can't do that on our own. We just put our feet and our hands to the task, and then God does all the increasing. He does all the real work, all the spiritual heavy lifting. But what we're looking at this summer is the idea that our lives are called to bear fruit, but the fruit isn't really from us. We're called to put ourselves out there to do all the things to bear fruit, but then the fruit is from God and it's not from us. And at the same time that we're being called to do that, there's this war going on within us from our counterparts all the way back to the garden in creation, where sin entered the world and the works of the flesh started. And so we've got this stuff in us that's the works of the flesh that war against us bearing fruit of the Spirit. And to remember that you and I can't bear this. This is not about us being good or being bad. Let's just all admit we're bad. There's nothing good in us apart from God. And so this is really looking at summer fruit. What could God bring about in my life? What could he transform me into by his power? What could he do in me? As we talk about the fruits of the Spirit last week, and we got this thing going, we're going to explore each fruit, starting with our first one today, love, and we're going to relate it to our everyday lives, because that's what matters, right? I mean, if this isn't relatable to you and to your life, if this isn't relatable to me and my life, then it's not going to go anywhere. This is going to end right here. It's not going to bear any fruit if it's not applicable to us. And so, like physical fruit, it takes spiritual fruit a long time to mature. It takes some time. It takes some days, some weeks, some months, maybe some years to ripen in our lives, just like physical fruit would. Love is probably the most well-known fruit of the Spirit. That's what we're going to talk about today, love. And it's also probably the most misunderstood. If you were here last week, you may have seen me farm a little bit. And bam, I told you. How about that? Yeah. Well, let me share the full story. Because you saw me dump those in. Some of you, those are turnips. There's probably some down in there right now. We probably all have a meal. That pot, because I left after service, and I forgot to set the pot outside. And so I come walking in here Thursday, some point later in the week. I just kind of kept walking by it, didn't think about it when I was in here for different things. All the lights were turned off. This thing didn't get any sunlight, and it didn't get any water all week long. It just got planted. And what I'm so impressed with my farming skills is that there's plants in there. And all I did was plant it. And here's the thing, you know that that's not because of my farming skills. You know that there was enough moisture in there, obviously, I don't even know how, for those things to start sprouting up. And there was enough light, it was gathering. It had to be a tough environment. But it started to sprout and started to grow. And I thought, man, what a picture. I mean, that's a sermon all by itself. That's not even for us today. But I just thought, man, how cool is that as an example? Just to say God wants to grow stuff. He just can't keep from doing it. He wants to grow stuff. And he wants to grow that kind of stuff in us, even when we put up obstacles and we don't really put a whole lot of effort. God is still moving to grow stuff in us. And I just think, man, what would he do in us if we really did farm it? If we really did put some hands to the work of spiritual fruit of what God was doing? What if we really put ourselves to it? What would God do? So we're gonna kind of explore this idea of love, and as I said, it's a well-known fruit, I think, but probably really misunderstood. And the reason I say that is because the English word for the English word love is so broad. It's so broad. We use love for that word for so many things. I love blueberry pancakes. You know, oh, I love your new dress. Oh, I love that Facebook post. And then that's the same word that we use, I love you. And so there's all kinds of definitions that would fill up the category of what love means in the English language for that English word love. In the Greek, it's not quite like that. In this verse that we read in Galatians, but the fruit of the Spirit is love, that first word, it's not like the English language. It's very specific. Love in the Greek language in this verse is agape. It's agape love. And agape love is, in the Greek language, there's different words for different types of love. This one specifically, agape love, is the perfect love of God. It's not a feeling, it's a choice. I want you to remember that. It's not a feeling, it's a choice, because that sounds like it might be a little outside the definition, but you'll see with me that it really is. Agape love, the perfect love of God, is not a feeling, it is a choice. Choice brings about actions. When you choose to do something, it's going to bring about actions that your hands and your feet carry out. You make a decision, you go for an action, and you follow through, and you do that. And that's what we're talking about here. It's the perfect love of God, and it's not a feeling, it is a choice. Look at this example in John chapter 15, verse 13. Jesus says, "Greater love has no one than this, that he lay his life down for his friends." Do you see that definition of love? This is Jesus saying, greater love has no one than this. I mean, you want to see the greatest definition of love is this. It's not a feeling. It's a choice that someone would lay down his life for his friends. And Jesus was ultimately talking about himself, but he was attaching an action for a decision he had made, not just how he felt about us. And it wasn't about Jesus coming in and saying, "Man, I hope you guys get this right, because I really do want to spend eternity with you." It came down to Jesus saying, "I'm going to lay down my life for you. That's how much I love you." Luke chapter 6, verse 35, "Love your enemies, do good to them, and lend to them without expecting anything back." You know, when you really start dissecting that verse in the thought of agape love, the perfect love of God, poured out in real action, choices, not feelings, it's really where the rubber meets the road. It kind of takes away the idea or the ability to just tolerate your enemies, to tolerate people that you have disdain for. So it takes that away from us. It does. So because we might say, "Look, I was a better person. I smiled. I was okay with them. All right. I didn't cause a scene. I was all right." So, yes. No. Saying, no, that's not the definition of love. That's not agape love as being a fruit of the Spirit that we're talking about today. This isn't about tolerating people. Jesus is taking it so much further than that. Look what he says. Love your enemies. Do good to them. See, if he would have said right there, if he would have left it right there, you and I could have escape routed somewhere else and justified that we were good to them because we didn't kill them or whatever else we might come up with, right? We would have something that we would be able to justify somehow we were good and somehow we did love our enemies. Well, I do love them. I just don't like them so much, but I do love them. Okay, but would you take it down to the next amount of detail that Jesus does as he continues to bear down into this idea of love your enemies? He says, lend to them without expecting anything back. In other words, they need money. They need something. Don't turn your back on them in that need. Even in the middle of your disdain, whatever it is, he's not asking us to come up with a feeling. He's not asking us to produce in yourself love, the feeling of love that, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. I didn't like you yesterday. I love you today. No, he's not asking. He's saying make a choice. Make a choice with the perfect love of God and do this. Lend to them. They need something. Meet the need. That's hard, isn't it? But it's easier than producing the feeling, probably, at the same time. Love is the greatest commandment in the Scriptures. Look at Matthew 22, verses 34 through 40. I want to read it, and then we're going to kind of unpack this story. But when the Pharisees heard that he had silenced the Sadducees, they gathered together. And one of them, a lawyer, asked him a question to test him. Teacher, which is the great commandment in the law? And he said to him, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the great and first commandment. And a second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commandments depend all the law and the prophets. So the Pharisees had heard that their rivals, the Sadducees, had kind of put Jesus to the test, and they were silenced, that they lost. They kind of tried to trap Jesus, and Jesus left them speechless. No way to argue. And so the Pharisees get together with the same plan. Well, then let us do it, because we're better than them anyway. So let's us trap him. Let us put him in a bad spot. And here's the spot we're going to put him in. They ask him this question, teacher, which is the great commandment in the law? Now, the backstory on that is that they had about 613 laws that they followed, but they didn't follow them. What they did is they had a hierarchy of laws out of the 613, and the ones that they saw as the greatest were up here. And then there were, I don't know how many there were, but there were all kinds of laws down here that they just kind of ignored. But they had an expectation for everybody else to follow all 613. And so what they asked Jesus is, teacher, which is the greatest commandment in the law? Like, get this is crazy. Because they want Jesus to pick one that's most important so that they can nail him for thinking that part of the law isn't important. The exact thing they're guilty of. It's exactly what they do. They have 13. They have a hierarchy. They have ones that they completely ignore. They only pay any attention to the ones that satisfy them. Just like you and me. And Jesus looks at them and he says this. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the great and first commandment. And. Jesus answers their question, but he doesn't stop. See, he could have just answered their question. They asked a singular question, which is the greatest commandment in the law? And he answered that with, love the Lord your God, all your heart, soul, and mind. This is the great and first commandment. Sounds like the end. And. Because it's not the end. Because Jesus is about to point something out to them that he would point out to us 2,000 years later that makes loving God more tangible and more real for all of us. And it's this. A second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. Jesus answers their question. This is the first and greatest commandment. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and all your mind. And there's a second that's like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. He takes both those things and he slaps them together. He doesn't just answer the question of what's the greatest commandment. And through the years, we have had this mantra now that says, love God, love people. It's kind of the summation of that. It's the idea that love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. It's that idea. And so we boiled it down to love God, love people. It's a great bumper sticker. It's a great coffee mug. It could be great discipleship action on our part. It could be. But the hard part is, how do I love God with all my heart, soul, and mind? How do I love God, love people? What does that even begin to look like? Well, let's let ourselves a little bit off the hook in that question. How do I love God with all my heart, soul, and mind? Just with the idea that you're going to do it and I'm going to do it imperfectly at best. At best, we're going to do it imperfectly because of who we are. But Jesus is pointing out a critical truth to us that we really need to bear down on this morning. If we're gonna bear summer fruit in our lives and love one of them, we're gonna have to look at how does this every day fit into my life with the truths Jesus said, and instead of answering their question with the answer, he answers it with two answers. And here's the thing, he was answering with two answers because two answers really show the one answer. Here's the first point. Loving God is invisible without people. Loving God is invisible without people. We can show up together. We've done that today. We can sing together. We've done that. We can pray together. We've done that. We can feel our love for him. But if the fruit he's looking for is agape fruit, agape, the perfect love of God in us, you and I can't see that in what we've done so far. And I'm not saying it's wrong. Matter of fact, it's right. We should come together and sing. We're called to come together and pray. We're called to come together and be equipped with his word. But loving God is invisible without people. I like to find out where people are in their lives when I feel like God's directing me in a path. And so I'll maybe take somebody to breakfast or lunch and just try to get together with them. And in so doing, I want to see where Jesus fits. And so I pray ahead of time and I pray during the time to try to figure out where does Jesus fit in this picture. And maybe he fits all through their life and they're going to build my faith. I don't know, but that's just some stuff I like to do throughout my week as an evangelistic, as me going out on mission to bring world revolution of Jesus. But every once in a while, I think people read my mail. They know what I'm doing. And I try to reach out and I just try to touch base somehow and just try to build something. And I don't have like this selling Amway. I'm not like, I'm not out there like trying to sell somebody a product that I don't believe in. I know Jesus is the only answer. It's not like there's another answer. And so I feel like, this is a pretty big deal. We really need to touch base with people about this and find out where they are. But every once in a while, I get somebody who'll start to, I'll try maybe several times and they're like, you know what? Look, man, it's just hard for us to get together and stuff. But look, man, I'm where you are. Like I get it. God is a big deal to me, and I'm where I'm there. And that's the words I've heard. Literally, those words. I'm there. And in my head, I don't say that, and I'm like, oh, cool, okay. Then that's my not. I do get it eventually. That okay. Backing up. But I think, where are you? If you're there, where? Because, and again, and it's because of this, loving God is invisible without people. And it's not like this ploy, I want to see more and more people come to South Oak. Yes, that would be awesome because we'll know God is working. But I'm just talking about where Jesus fits in the life and the story of who people are. When people say they're there, but they're not really there, or I don't know if they're there because I don't see any evidence of being there. That's what we're talking about when we're discussing agape love. The perfect love of God as a fruit in our lives poured out is gonna be evidence that we're there. It's gonna be evidence that we're there. So loving God is invisible without people. Nobody's gonna be able to see it. Loving God is impossible without loving people. Loving God is impossible without loving people. That's what John says. 1 John 4:20, if anyone says, I love God, but hates his brother, he is a liar. Anyone who does not love his brother who he has seen cannot love God whom he has not seen. So loving God is invisible without people, but even to drill down further, loving God is impossible without loving people. So I was trying to flesh out this sentence. What does this look like to bear the fruit of God, to bear love, to bear agape, perfect love of God in me? How do I do that when I can't generate it? I can't manufacture agape love in me for someone else. How does that happen in me? What is it? How can I build a sentence to start to make my mind wrap around this idea? And so this is what I got. So loving God with all our hearts, soul, and mind should be loving on people with the perfect agape love of God. That's why Jesus puts these two things together. That's why he says the greatest commandment is love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind, and love your neighbor as yourself, because they both have to be together. If you try to love God without people, it's invisible. Nobody sees it. I could look like I love God. I can appear to love God, but do I really love God through choice? Do I really love God through decisions? And as I said before, we're gonna do that imperfectly, and we're gonna fail at times. But if we start with the idea that loving God with all our hearts, our soul, and our mind should be loving on people with his perfect love, it's going to change things. It's going to look different maybe than what we've experienced before, or if we have experienced it before, we're going to realize that it's not about convenience. It's not about, well, it all fit in the right order, so I was able to get this done for somebody today. That's not the way it's going to look. You might remember the story of the Good Samaritan in Luke chapter 10. We're not going to read that, but I want to kind of summarize this story of this Good Samaritan. There's this man that's going from Jerusalem to Jericho. And Jesus is just telling this story. And he's telling this story because a lawyer, Pharisee, has asked, again, it's the same idea. I mean, Jesus asks him, what's the greatest commandment? He says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind. He says basically the same kind of thing here. And then Jesus says, and to love your neighbor as yourself. He attaches the two. Again, you go back and look at Luke 10, you'll see a similarity here. And then the lawyer asks another question to get him out of loving on people to prove that you love God. Like he's trying to, and it's this. Well, okay, love God, all my heart, soul, and mind, and neighbor as myself. Well, who's my neighbor? Right? He asks that. Who's my neighbor? We're not going to stay there. I don't want to stay there all night. Here's who's neighbor. Your neighbor is anybody breathing on planet Earth. That's your neighbor, okay? If they're breathing and they're on planet Earth and they're human, then they're your neighbor. This man, Jesus says, is going from Jerusalem to Jericho. He falls among robbers who are waiting for him. they steal from him, and they strip him down, and they beat him, and they leave him half dead. And then Jesus goes through a scenario of other people. Read the story if you want all the details, but other people who see him and pass by on the other side of the street. And Jesus specifically gets to the point of, then there was this Samaritan, because they were at odds. Jews and Samaritans were at odds for hundreds of years in the way they worshiped. They didn't associate with one another. Jews saw Samaritans as unclean. Samaritans saw Jews as pious, and you'd never have me in your group anyway. And so both of those factions are going on. Jesus is talking to Jews, and he says, then there's a Samaritan that walks up and sees this guy beaten up, laying half dead on the side of the road. And Jesus tells the story of this man, this Samaritan, having compassion on him, the scripture says. And he tends to his wounds, and he picks him up, and he lays him across his own animal, and he takes him into town, and he gets a room, and he gets the man a room, and he tends to his wounds more. Then he goes to the innkeeper, and he hands the innkeeper some money and says, take care of him while I'm gone. I'm going to continue on. If you'll take care of him, just meet his needs. And then he says, and then if he's taken up all the money I've given you, go ahead and keep taking care of him, because on my way back, I'll pay you what I owe you still. Doesn't that sound convenient? It's not convenient at all. It's extremely inconvenient. Jesus tells a story of a Samaritan who's on a journey. He's going somewhere, and boom, he can't get away from it. Here's a guy who's half dead lying in the road. Now, other people have walked by. Other people just kind of cruised on by, and I don't know, don't look, don't tell, just walk by. They did this, but the Samaritan couldn't do that. He had compassion on him. And Jesus is describing who the neighbor is. Yes, but I want you to look back at what's the root of the verse. The root of the verse is love your neighbor. Nobody else showed this man love. And what I'm pointing to is that agape love, perfect love of God, lived out as a fruit in us, is going to have action like what Jesus is describing the Samaritan do. The Samaritan goes to him out of inconvenience. It's not at all convenient for him to stop. It's not at all convenient for him to, now I got to take you back to the inn. I should have left you laid dead in the middle of the road. Now I only got 2 shekels with me. What am I going to do? I don't even know what to do. All the thoughts that would argue us out of doing agape love in someone's life, Jesus points it out to someone who really had every reason not to show love. He was a stranger. First of all, he didn't know this guy. He's culturally at odds with him. He's a Jew, I'm a Samaritan. We're not even in the same mindset. And that's apart from the idea that he's going to be risking his own safety. Whoever robbed and beat that man down might still be around. You see someone out in the middle of nowhere, and that's what they look like, and think, man, I go over and help, but I need to get out of here. I need to leave. This isn't safe. That's how Jesus points out what agape love for our neighbor looks like. Loving God is invisible without people, and loving God is impossible without loving people, and loving people when it's really inconvenient. Loving people who are from different worlds than us, different nations than us, brought up different ways than us, heading in way different paths than us. And Jesus says, love those neighbors. If you're going to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind, you'll do that, and it will be visibly seen because you love your neighbors, because you have this attitude toward them. So what does agape love look like in our lives, practically speaking? It looks like this, man. Your plans are going to change. If you're going to see the fruit of the Spirit, love, produced in your life, if I'm going to see that produced in my life, I'm going to have to change my plans. I'm going to have to be flexible. I can't just be married to my plan and not married to the idea that you get first priority to make a new plan. That's hard because there's a lot of things involved in it. There are calendars involved where we have calendared ourselves into a life of maybe busyness, but we've calendared ourselves into important things. You've got important stuff going on your calendar. And what agape love would reach in and say to us is, yeah, you're going to have to slice some of that. You got to be ready at a drop's notice to be able to show agape love. Your finances. Your finances are going to have to be fluid enough from you to somebody else that you're going to be you and I are going to have to be willing to say, I'm going to help meet that need for them because I have it and they don't. And I want the love of God poured out on their lives. Obligations, we're going to have obligations. We're going to have barriers. We're going to have all kinds of things that are going to get in the way, and all those things have to change. They all have to get broken down to bear the fruit of love in the life of someone else. And here's the beautiful part, man, is we are our obstacles. I mean, we're the obstacle. God wants to do that in our lives. He wants to perfect. He wants the perfect love of himself in us, agape love producing fruit coming out, and we're the obstacle. But look, man, I mean, it's no different than this. If we just put a little work into it and let him have us, he's going to do the work. He's going to bear the fruit. He's going to do what he wants to do in us. So around here, we take next steps. And so should you choose to say, you know what, I'm going to bear love as a summer fruit. That's what I'm going to start with this week. This next step would be for you. Love God visibly by loving people. This week, be aware and take advantage of choosing to act in love towards someone when it's inconvenient. You'll know right when it's inconvenient. Because you'll have, I can't, right on the tip of your lips, ready to say, I'm sorry, I can't do it. Man, I wish you'd asked me last week. Wish you could ask, you know what, in a couple days I'll be freed up. If those thoughts are going through your head, it's inconvenient. Perfect fertile ground to bear the fruit love in your life. And you'll know it's not just a work on your own. You'll know God's doing something in the midst of your own heart. Let's pray. Father, thank you for this day. Thank you that you never give up on us, that you went to the cross for us. You gave your life for us. You bared the real fruit of love. And you want and you desire and encourage us to take the step of allowing the love that you shared with us, the love that you poured out on us, to be poured out on others. And so, God, may you open our eyes as we leave here today. Those who follow after you, would you give us opportunities this week when it's inconvenient to bear love for you. So may we free up may you have our calendars and our obligations, any barriers, our finances, all of our plans, God, may you have them. And help us to hold them very loosely so that we'll be available to bear the fruit of love. All for your glory in your name, Jesus. Amen. Hey, listen, if you'll get out your Connect card,